I'll run the first session. Unfortunately, I only speak English. I don't speak any Welsh. So if you don't understand anything I say, Anton will translate. The first thing we need to do, this is an unconference, and at the moment we're sitting very, very conferencey. What an unconference is, there's very few rules, and just three things. Firstly, we have no presentations, so you won't be seeing big PowerPoints. There'll be no death by PowerPoint. There's no pitches and no name badges, because if you want to know who somebody is, just go and talk to them. I find that works best. There will be, I think we're going to have about 70 people here today, but some of you have been waiting around a little while, so I thought it's worth starting. The first thing we need to do in the sessions that you go to, this is important advice. If you go into a session and it's not what you expected, please leave and go to another one. And if there isn't one on, if there isn't a track running or a session that you're interested in, please just go and stand outside with the coffee and start your own. Because it is unconference, okay? So this day is for you to find out and have the conversations and meet the people that you need to meet. It's not a conference where we've already decided what we think you need to know. So each session will be quite open. The first thing we need to do is we're sitting very conference, so can we just pick the chairs up and put them in a circle, and then I'll start the first day. And the session I'm going to start with is a session that I have spoken about in about 40 countries, which is everything you know is wrong. Thank you, that's a little bit more comfortable. The first thing I should really introduce myself. Some of you may know me, some of you won't. My name is Bill Morgan, or at Bill Morgan. My job is being me, really. That's what I do. I travel the world. Really, I would describe myself as a student of recruiting and technology. So I'm involved in 4 areas. I implement recruiting. I'm a recruiter. I started off age 16 in a recruitment office. I ran a desk. I did that for about 12 years for different businesses, then moved from running a desk to running a group of agencies, and then we started a recruitment business that grew from 6 offices to about 175. Then I moved into more traditional training and performance management, and as computers got invented, I remember in my history of recruiting having an argument with somebody that if we didn't get a fax machine, we would appear to be old-fashioned. No one would ever do business with us. So, and remember the days when people still used the telephone for calling people rather than other stuff. So that's my background. I now work with recruiting technology companies, in particular Rollpoint, which is a social referral business, Job8, which is a social recruiting research and CRM, back-end database, and I work with a traditional recruitment software business, helping them to understand the social media, social recruiting landscape. I've done recruiting implementation, so redesigned recruitment strategy for companies from Oracle. The BBC is the most recent project. I've just started a project with Cirque du Soleil, which is pretty interesting. It's kind of fun working with acrobats and stuff. So, and I look at everything from a recruiting point of view. So I would describe myself as a student of recruitment, and I will, already this year, I've conducted research or visited close to 20 countries this year, and about 45 last year. So I have a good global picture of what's going on. What I think happens when you look at recruiting is every country you go to, 70% of the conversation is roughly the same. It's going to be slightly different over what it feels like in Russia, or if you go to Romania, but about 70% we're talking about the same things. How do we find the right people? How do we match them in the right jobs? And how do we make that process quite smooth? But also in every country there's about 30% which is unique, which is local. Because however global we go, recruiting is a local business. There will always be local issues which affects the way that labour or people working move around. Now that might be a legislation, that might be a geography, that might be history, that might be social, but there's always something unique. So what I'm really interested in, for me, what I want to get out of today is to get an idea of what the 30% is for here. Because I kind of know about the 70%, although I can help you with that. But what is anyone else here for today? You signed up and come out in the rain and brave the traffic. Some of you even got here early, which I understand is really good in this part of the world. So what do you want to find out about today? What will make this a good day? Anyone? Anything? Yeah, sure. You don't have to put your hand up. This is our conference, so the best thing you can do is just shout out and interrupt people.
Yeah, well, I'm interested in good success stories. So I'm curious how people manage their problems, and I'm interested to see interesting solutions to our work. Yeah.
Because recruiting is really simple business. We make it really complicated. Or are qualified to do a job. We have a group of people over here who are hiring. We ask questions and bring the two together. Somehow or other we make it complicated. I remember speaking with my son. I was on a flight to Florida with my son, and he was when he was about 8 or 9 years old, and he said to me, "Dad, tell me everything you know about recruiting." I said, "Well, I've been doing this for about 25 years now, so, but it's a long flight, so I'll tell you some stuff." So I started telling him some things, and he was asking me very simple and honest questions like children do. And at the end of it, he just went, "Okay, so just so I get this right, there's people looking for jobs." I said, "Yeah." He said, "There's people who want to hire those people." I said, "Yeah." He says, "And you put the two together?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You get paid for that then?" Which was a shock. And I think we lose that. I think we make it complicated with all of the feel of technology and marketing and all the things we need to do. Sometimes we need to get back to the basic, simple stuff and then say, how do we take technology as an enabler of that rather than a barrier of that? So also look at all the technology stuff. So we'll talk a lot about that today. And I've lots of stories. So I worked with Hard Rock Cafe in their new store opening. So we hired 120 people in 4 weeks, and we did everything end-to-end in Facebook. So we offer the jobs in Facebook through messaging. So and Oracle do about 65% of their hiring through the Facebook page. So there's some interesting social stuff going on there that we could share with you. What about anybody else? Oh, yeah, just shout out.
For Hyundai Motors, and recently I have started to recruit, and I'm here for some knowledge in recruitment. So I want to hear from colleagues about their experience, so some advices, solutions. Thank you.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, just to continue, my colleague is sorry don't remember your name, because actually the typical problems that we already know in the HR, but to know real experience and untypical solutions for these typical problems. Because every conference, every event, we discussing the same things, but usually the same approaches, the same things. So today, with all the colleagues, with their experience, maybe we could share something untypical.
I'm known for doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's kind of what I do. So some examples, we did a graduate student hiring campaign in Farmville on Facebook, which was the most successful campaign that's ever been done. So I'll share some of those.
Hope we will do something today.
Craziness.
Crazy thing.
Craziness. I think with recruiting, there's a few very simple things. The first one is we're not looking for best practice, we're looking for test practice. I think recruiting departments, we make, in HR and recruiting, we give ourselves a really hard time, because if we worked in any other area of the business, research would be fine. But we always think in recruiting we have to get it perfect first time. We have to go run that campaign. It has to deliver the right candidates, however we do it. Actually, if we worked in anything else, we'd be doing lots of tests and analytics to look at what happens. So I believe in doing stuff. Just do lots of stuff and work on test practice, not best practice. Because if you're doing best practice, you're copying someone. That's not innovation. It might be good, it's not innovation. So testing lots of things to find out what works and track everything. So I'll share some of that test stuff with you. What about anybody else?
Okay.
This part is, everybody starts like AA session.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hi, I've been recruiting. My name is.
I've
I've been recruiting for 7 years.
I made my first placement 30 years ago. I've been trying to give it up, but I keep coming back.
So my topic right now, and I'm Anton, I've been recruiting for 10 plus years. Qualifying, not finding but qualifying, anything on that, how we do that. And you said the recruiting is simple. You got people who are looking for jobs, and you got people who have jobs, but in reality you have a floor sweeper who's looking for a job, or a GM of a factory. That's what happens. So how do you qualify whether
We have to question why that happens.
Yeah, I know. So there's a lot of whys when you come to qualify, and some motivation thing inside there,
Yeah.
and also setting the standards inside of the company. So that's also plays in that. So this is where my interest lies. How do you make this?
I think we generally deserve the rubbish candidates that we get. Generally, because the way in which we go about hiring. It's one of the things that I talk about. One of the sessions that I speak about at conferences is on everything you know is wrong. Because I think most of what we do in recruiting process and recruiting technology, we do because we always have done, not because it's the right way to do things. We just kind of carry on doing the same.
Yeah.
We might get a new, so, you know, for example, if LinkedIn explodes as a chat room and suddenly you have profiles, but we just carry on doing the same thing. We move away from, I know you're from Boston, but we move away from what we used to do, which was post and private. Let's put lots of adverts up and sit and wait for people to come in to say, okay, we don't have to post adverts anymore. Now we can do source and spray. If we're looking for a Java programmer in Moscow, let's just find everyone that's a Java programmer in Moscow and send them all a message saying we've got a great job and not do any magic matching. So I actually think we spend too much time thinking in recruiting about talent attraction. And actually what I'm always looking for is deselection. How can I persuade you not to apply to us?
That's part of it, yeah.
What can I show you so that if you're still left in that funnel, I can tell you for Europe, I don't know the figure for here, but the average in Europe is you have to have 75 applicants to fill your job in the pipeline. And of those 75, 70% are completely unqualified or unsuitable. What you said earlier.
Yeah, but then you judge, and I don't know if it's time to jump into that.
It is.
You judge either by what they tell about themselves or what they think about themselves. So when you do something to make them not talk like the job, so you're working with motivation. So on that level. At the same time, if they did apply, but what they've told about themselves unqualifies them for the job, then it's a job for the
They don't need to tell me who they are.
Yeah. Today, you're probably right. In many cases, you can find out.
This is what I mean. We still run recruitment systems, right? We still build our recruiting function or recruiting business around people needing to give us information, people needing to give us data. Right? It's still a case of most people applying involves a form of some kind, even if it's online. We'll ask you for information. You provide us with information. We no longer need anyone to provide us with information.
You still do, but yeah, we're on the way when we want.
Sure about that.
There are a whole bunch of companies who need to do a better job of collecting that information, making collection of that information possible.
All you need to do is give me permission to access the data.
Well, yeah.
And I'll go find it. But because the thing is,
Not
since
necessarily.
you know, I'm glad to have a look at that. I'm glad to take that bet. We'll have a look later. I'm glad to look for people. People exist somewhere online.
Yeah, see, that's not for everybody. So this is, again, from recruitment project's point of view. You're looking for agricultural, I don't know how it's called, the guy who works with plants and stuff.
Yeah.
Agricultural.
Horticultural engineer.
At high level.
Yeah.
And what we found out, they don't live on the internet.
No,
They live in the fields.
they will have qualified from somewhere, or they'll have pictures of what they do, or they will have had that they will be somewhere else. The recruiting thing in terms of data, how we look for people, is when we say everything we know is wrong, is that in the past, recruiting was about finding CVs. Call them CVs here or resumes?
Yeah, I've read both ways.
Both ways. We still look for CVs, we still look for a very fixed set of data, as in this person X has worked at company Y for 10 years doing it. Actually, we don't need to look for that anymore. So in the new data world, what we're looking for is people. Where would people go? So for instance, I will always start every search in Google Images, always, whenever I'm looking for anyone. That's the place where I will get the best results, pictures. Because people leave pictures up, even people who have no LinkedIn profile, no Facebook, no anything, will have pictures of their work, pictures of where they grow, things like graduation pictures. So that gives me the starting point. And I think what the challenge is now is how do we join the dots? Because the information that we need on people is going to be in lots of different places, it's in lots of buckets rather than in one. And what we're trying to do with technology is bring that back in. How do we get it in one place?
In a lot of different contexts as well.
Absolutely. So it's not just, it's also looking for context. It's content, searching for content. What are the things? So the things I'm looking for in content is anything you recruit for, always know the geek words. Every profession has geek words. Geek words are the unique things which one person would say to another if they do a job. And it doesn't matter what profession we look at, if we walked into a bar and we heard some people talking, we could identify, this is what these guys do, or by what they're saying. When we actually now, they're saying that just online. So when we go search for content rather than profiles, because what we are finding with profile searching, for example, on LinkedIn, is the only people who are giving us, who are putting themselves up to be found online, are people who want to be found. The people who want to be found are usually not very good. That's why they want to be found. That's why they're putting themselves out. The people who are good are hiding themselves because they're fed up with recruiters ringing them and messaging. In some places they're getting some, for instance, advanced digital programmers getting 30 or 40 calls or messages a day. So they go, I'm just going to hide my stuff. I'll still have a bio, but we can find them through content. It's a matter of knowing what are the things that I'm looking for and in what language and what am I searching for. So that's kind of what we try and think about, and there is some technology that's helping with that. It's still a human process, but it's something that...
But then when you come to that, and I'm sorry to...
No, you can. This is
take cost in the conversation, but is really the best person for it, who is fed up and who is successful? Is that the one you're looking for?
No,
is that the one?
Generally you're not. We're not looking for people who are looking for jobs. We can get indications that they're not happy. There's lots of things we can look at in terms of how people feel about their jobs, and I'll share some of that later today. So there are some things that we can look at, but mostly what we're looking for is show me something that shows me what you do. Now let's get your data. There are other ways that I can find out about people. So, for instance, if I give you an example, when we ran the Hard Rock campaign to hire people on Hard Rock, we wanted to be able to target adverts. And I think of social recruiting as I'm delivering an advert to one, which is always either going to be a social referral or it's going to be a traditional advert in something like Facebook, like a paid-for advert or something like that. And we use the Spotify app in Facebook to identify the music that you downloaded the most in order to deliver an ad which had a picture of that artist. So you get when you're personalising, when you're going out and finding data, this is what we've always done as recruiters, right? We've just done it on a small scale. We've found out what we can about a person and then approach them with what we think they're going to respond to the best. We still do the same thing, we just do it online, and the difference we've been able to do it online is the volume means it's like it's on steroids. We can just go out and profile people very easily when we think about what we're looking for. What we're not necessarily looking for is work information. We're looking for, what can I find out about you as a person? How can I approach you and talk to you? Because actually, the big difference now is we still have recruiting process and methods built around, we have a job, you apply for that job, 99% of the people don't get that job, 1% do, and that's fine. We forget about the 99%, then when we get another job, we start again. It's a rinse and repeat cycle every time we recruit. This is where we're at right now. In Europe, it takes 75 applicants to fill a job. The average recruiter is handling 30 jobs. So they have a pipeline at any one time of over 3,000 candidates. You just can't manage that. So you find the best people by luck rather than by design. Hopefully you find the right person. Because we start putting things in like eliminators. If this person doesn't have a degree, they're not suitable. Don't even show them. A hiring manager in an organisation will see 5 CVs out of every 1,000 submitted to the company. 5. That's where it works out. Because by the time people have been eliminated by the ATS, by the application process, then they've gone to a recruiter who's then eliminated some more, usually on technical grounds. They end up with a very small sample. That's why people go, there's a talent shortage. There isn't a talent shortage. There's a finding problem. And the finding problem is because we find too many people. We can't narrow it down. So today we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff we can do it. And it's because we've built process, method and technology on needing to get information from people, when actually we don't need to get information from people. What we need to do is get them to connect with us. Some of the things we work on, people don't apply for jobs, they connect with organisations. And actually we show them jobs that they're suitable for, so that they don't apply for ones that they're not suitable. The only things they see, the only jobs they see, there is some qualification in it already been done to say they're the right person. It's kind of interesting what's going on at the moment. It's very exciting times, but we have to divorce our mind from thinking about old method, which is you need to give me information, because you don't. I need to be able to go and find the information where it is. And I agree with you, sometimes I find holes, but when I find the holes, that's when I'll go to you and say, can you provide me this bit of information, or this bit of one?
Yeah, but also when you deal with more or less mass, quote-unquote, mass recruitment, then you don't really have the luxury of, paying too much attention to every particular job and every particular candidate. So then there's another problem that comes in. You have to sort through that there's no 75 applicants, but 200 applicants for every job. And they are equally the same, pretty much.
Equally unqualified.
Or equally unqualified or equally qualified.
Yeah.
So.
Because the other interesting thing is only 20% of people who apply for jobs actually look at a job description.
Yeah.
Most people respond
Job title and salary.
They're responding to an ad. They've never actually looked at a job description that says, here are the basic requirements of this job. If you don't have this, don't apply.
Yeah, so
And
they apply to job title and salary.
Yeah, so the solution for me is creating a bridge. So what you're asking people to do, there's a difference between a candidate and an applicant. So I look on people being in 3 different categories of people. The first one is a lead, which is I've identified you, but I don't know enough about you to put you somewhere in terms of what you are and who you are. So I can't show you content or information that might be useful. Number 2, you become a candidate, which means we've connected. We have a relationship. That relationship will last as long as you want it to, not as long as I want it to. In the traditional application process, the relationship is only alive when you're applying for a job. Then usually you find out you haven't got it because you haven't heard from me. So when you get to about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I figure I haven't got a job. A candidate, because one of the things we're finding from our research is that people will be connected with companies in some way for about 7.5 months before they apply for a job. That's the average life. But they might have just joined their page on Facebook or followed them on LinkedIn or gone somewhere else. So that relationship has to be different. It can't be transactional. Actually, it's only ever transactional when they decide, I want to apply for this job, now I'm in the race. But if I don't get this job, I go back into the candidate pool and say, have a look at me for next time. There's lots of stuff we can do to change that. Most organisations miss their best pool of candidates, which is the people they already hire. Because they don't search in there. The people who already work for them is where they probably have the best talent and the best chance of success because you already know those people. So I work on a matching method in the technology we try and put together that says the first place we search for every job is internally. Because we already have the HR system, we already know the skills, we already know something of their attendance and performance and record, so we already know their behaviour. Most likely we're going to find the right person in there. A company called Sodexo do this in the States, do this better than anybody else. They have a team of recruiters who can recruit in the organisation and don't need permission. They don't need permission to ring somebody up and say there's a job for you. And they have a mobile app that pushes jobs out in the organisation. I'm also really interested in internal referrals, where you actually say to people inside an organisation, which of your colleagues would you recommend for this job? It's a management post. They're going to be your supervisor. Who do you want it to be? That's that kind of thinking. That's where we get the best people from. And all of that is very different to the way most of us build our recruiting systems. So we'll look at some of that today. I hope you enjoyed today. So I think it's time to start. By the way, if you want to speak in Russian today, feel free. I won't understand what you're saying, so I won't get the help from you. This is your day, right? This is not our day, so this is your day to do what you want to do. And welcome to the True family. We've had 40 countries so far, 45 countries so far. So whenever you go on Twitter or anything and use the hashtag TRU, you'll find people replying from all over the place. And feel free to, please do turn on your phones and start posting stuff to Facebook and Twitter. Please do that. I get very nervous when that doesn't happen. So the first sessions, I think, is the role of employees in employer branding in social media, which is in here. And using social media to recruit what is new in Russia next door. Okay? Go to whichever session you want. Enjoy. Have a good day, everybody. Here through social media and social media in Russia next door. In Russia next door. So you want to go to that? That's good. So I won't be offended if anyone else wants to go on. So I think this is the key. Is how do we make our workplaces visible? Right? So how do we make it visible that actually this is what it's like to work here? Because most people make that choice on culture. Right? They choose where do we want to work. I have a belief that you don't have a bad culture, you just have a bad culture fit. People don't, and the best, especially from what you were saying about shortage of talent, people choose the best place where they're going to want to work the most. I don't know, what does anyone else think or question? It's a conversation, it's not
well, just experience. I mean, I was the head of recruitment for WC in 2006, 2007.
Yep.
And what we did then was actively went out to do the employer branding with IMPs. So most of it we did, they appeared, they're not online mostly, more in journals, professional, not only professional, a lot of even glossy adverts, was one done with what do you do not at work, so we had an employee actually playing a rock band. The other was doing extreme mountain climbing.
Accountants have become quite good at that. because generally everybody thinks they're boring.
Exactly. That's the thing we were.
So they thought, yeah, we set up a Facebook page for Deloitte in the UK. It was called Accountants Sexy. And they had to post pictures doing things like climbing and skiing, and we got thousands of pictures for accountants. So.
I mean, the big four in the UK, they do a lot in that sense. They are what we look at as well. But another thing that was even more effective was some of the partners that were actually on social media. And they were sharing what they think about the company, what kind of expectations, because a big thing was always to manage expectations. That's what I at least think. Back in the beginning, looking for the right people.
When you turn up, it shouldn't be a surprise.
Exactly.
But when I walk in the place, I should be going, this is what I expected, this is what I signed up for.
And the same as when you start work, after your recruitment process, after you've been to the interviews, you met the people, suddenly you sit at your desk and think, oh gosh, what is this? Then something's gone wrong. Absolutely. So I believe involving your employees, because eventually your candidates out there, that's where they will be. And it is the most effective tool in managing expectations.
The single biggest place on the web that people look at when they want to look at a company and apply to a company is the individual LinkedIn profiles of people who do the same job. In fact, that's where they'll go. If they're a Python programmer, they'll go and look at the Python programmers at PwC before they apply.
I even tell people to do that. Friends of mine, when they say, "Oh, I'm probably going to start working there." I've been through the interview process, and we hear about the company, particularly if it's a brand, we know about it. But have you heard? Because you're in HR, do you know what it's actually like working there? Speak to the people who work there.
Go and connect.
Go and connect. And most people say, "Well, that's a good idea." Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So many people don't do that still. We have here in Russia, of course, we have the big brands now with the state companies. Gazprom. What's it like working at Gazprom? There's probably a lot of rumours around there. The fact is that these companies are now so big. You should actually probably talk to those who you will be working with. What division? What unit? And then you can get a better picture of what it will be like.
I mean, what about anyone else? Anyone else finding anything that
Well, I work for GE and we use
you guys do a great job with that stuff?
well, actually we pay the employees to find talent. So that's maybe, it's not necessarily through social media, but you talk to your friend, you have your social lead, you talk about which jobs are out there, and we actually get a little bonus to get
A
talent.
bonus if they're hired or a
If
bonus?
they're hired. Only if they're
Right.
hired.
I do. Right. Are they leveled according to seniority?
No,
Design?
no, doesn't
It's-
matter.
But it's not a percentage of the salary.
No, it's a fixed
It's
amount.
fixed.
I don't know how much it is actually. It's probably by country because India would be different than Russia or Holland for that matter.
Yeah.
So it's per
But it's
country.
for hires.
It's for
See,
hires.
Yeah, I do quite a lot around the social referral area, which is the introducing people. But we tend to we reward referrals rather than hires.
So it's called a referral program, but you only get paid if you get hired.
Yeah, exactly. So well, there's two things about it. Number one, it's called a program, which suggests it's temporary.
It's there for a long time.
Yeah, I know. But when you call something a referral program,
Yeah.
it indicates that is something that we're doing at the moment. It's kind of like a project. When you pay for, some companies pay big money for referrals.
So PwC does, for example.
Yeah. So there's two problems with that for me. One is, whenever you're paying money, there's always due diligence. So you're always finding reasons not to pay the money. So then you get rules like, well, the candidate can't have been in the system for 2 years. They have to be around it. We pay after 6 months of them being employed. They have to be in good standing at the end of that 6 months. There's kind of all kinds of rules which are built around.
Well, that's how you handle it with all the rules. How do they live in the organisation? I remember when again here in PwC, it was a success. So if someone was in the system before, obviously because it's a referral program that goes through HR, we would tell them to put it. If not, eventually it turned out maybe they had been, well, that was the problem of HR.
And then you get things like, well, have you told the candidate, have we uploaded the CV, have you gone through the process? So one company that I went into, so the average of what I'm finding is the reward that you get in any organisation is it's 7.5 months before you receive the reward from the point of when you did what I wanted. So what I wanted you to do was make a referral. But because you've got to go through application process, interview process, hire, there's normally 7 months between you doing that and you actually getting a reward as a result. And then organisations will say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to double the reward. And they double the reward, they don't get any more referrals. It doesn't make it any more effective a system.
I'm not saying it's very effective.
No, I understand that. I think that it's finding ways to make. I think for referrals, when you're talking about social referrals, the first thing is understanding the difference. A traditional referral was a recommendation.
Yes.
It was an endorsement of that person. A social referral is me saying, I'm connected. You want me to talk to you about this job, I can do, but I don't know that they're going to be great at it or anything else. And that's what we're finding is difficult for people, that they don't necessarily know who's good or who's great. So,
Well, then from the employer point of view, I would not be prepared to pay for that. Why? Well, because the involvement of the colleague, an endorsement, is more.
the problem that you get, there's a plus side to it, because your efficiency of referrals to hire is quite high. The downside is your volumes are very low.
That's right.
Yeah, because how many people do you actually know who you would go, I'll risk my career on something great? That number's going to be quite small.
Correct. Because in that sense, my colleague, my employee, is like a recruitment agent.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we would definitely, for an agency, we get pre-selected candidates.
In theory.
In theory. That's what we
Theory,
pay for.
not necessarily true.
Absolutely.
And Bill, can you throw out some examples, for example, from a company that uses RollPoint or any similar system?
Yeah.
How much do they pay?
How does it work?
Yeah, how is it working?
Rackspace. I'll give you some examples. Rackspace.
Rackspace, okay.
Rackspace in the US.
Is it a major company? Well,
Yeah, they're a web hoster, so they're about the third biggest web hosting company in the world. And they've got a very particular culture. So we introduced a system which was called Certified Racker Referrer. Right, so if you referred someone, you got a t-shirt. And the t-shirt says C2R, which means you're certified racker referrer, and it says on the back, it takes one to know one. If you wear your t-shirt on a Friday, you get free beer. That's the system. And it went crazy. It's gone crazy before folks. We've just been working with another company, with RollPoint, who are in San Francisco. They're slightly different. So what you reward is very much tied down to the culture of your employees and knowing what your organisation's like. So they were targeting older engineers, typically. They said where other people are trying to get the new guys out of university, new ideas and that kind of thing, we become attracted to them when they've started having children and families, because we don't work the same crazy hours as a startup. So we become attractive to people in a certain group, but we don't pay as much as those guys either. So it's kind of a give and take of what we do. So what they're doing with their referrals is they've introduced a program, they've introduced a referral network, which gives a bottle of wine. And we found wine was better than beer, because if you're family orientated, you can take wine home and have that with your family. So simple things like that of knowing to order.
But it's still not money.
No, there's no cash. There's no cash. But then what we do is have a raffle. So everyone who makes a referral gets a raffle ticket, right? Once a month, the winery come in from Napa Valley and do wine tasting with all the employees. And say, which one do you like? Which one do you want to be the reward this month? What do you like? So they choose which one is going to be the reward. Of the 4 people are picked out of the referral with the 4 raffle tickets are picked out, and when the raffle tickets are picked out, that chooses who wins, and they do the Harley Davidson over the Golden Gate Bridge into the Napa Valley, the wine tasting, winery tour, do all that kind of thing. So what we're trying to do with that is actually, we reward it, we're actually trying to create stories. We have another organisation that we work with where we do beer for a year on a raffle. Bullhorn in Boston was a referral program I set up. They were going for an IPO, so they had to hire 29 high-level engineers. So you would normally expect to pay significant fees to attract those people through agencies. We ran a referral competition for a car. So a car. It was a car. It was a Volkswagen Beetle. So very distinctive, nice shape, company name across it, very nicely branded. Because it was branded by the company, it was also tax deductible, so it's kind of a nice. It actually didn't cost a lot of money in comparison to what you thought it might cost. Had we paid traditional referral bonuses, it cost something like 16,000 USD. By the time it's done, we parked it in the lobby every day. So every day you came in the lobby, you saw the card that says, "Make your referrals," and you get it. Yeah. So every referral gets a raffle ticket. 7 people refer the same person, they all get a raffle ticket. Doesn't matter. So that's been really, and that was successful in hiring 29 people in 2 weeks through referral. High-level programs.
And can you give a little more traditional system where you actually pay cash for every single step of this process?
When you pay for every step,
For example, you pay something if this person is just referred to you.
Yeah.
You pay extra if this person, is qualified for this position.
Yeah.
And you pay even more if this person is actually hired.
Yeah.
And
doesn't actually work very much anywhere but China.
China.
Yeah. What you've got in China at the moment is you have a psychology. You were talking about international recruiting. You have a psychology in China where they don't necessarily believe they're going to have a free economy forever. They think it's here at the moment, but it might be next year might be different. So they're very much motivated by how can I get as much cash in as possible now and put it somewhere, because I don't necessarily believe, and that's part of what I was saying about the 30% local. So that's China. When you go to places like the US or Europe, they have a very different attitude to cash. Used to be cash was king. It's not the big motivator, really.
Well,
Once you get beyond the point, do you know Stack Overflow? The Stack Overflow is the biggest community of programmers and developers globally. They surveyed 50,000 developers about all kinds of things, about what would motivate them to change jobs. And 70% of them would accept a 20% salary cut for the right job. Bearing in mind they're very well paid. So there's a big difference between a programmer earning serious money taking a 20% cut. Still means that if you're on the kind of the minimum wage, you're probably not going to, what you earn becomes important. So you're talking about different classes of employees. They would take a 20% cut for the most important things. Most important things to them were, number one, the equipment that they worked on, being programmers. Number two, the type of work they did is interesting work. I don't want to be working in. I want to be doing work which I'm learning from and is challenging me. So that then becomes. And so how they answered that from an employee branding point of view, a Stack Overflow is they recognise that so workspace is really important. The most important bit of employee branding, the content that you should make visible, is the workspace. It's the most important thing that people want to see. I'm going to be imprisoned here for the next 4 years. I'm going to have to work here. What's it going to look like? So pictures of desks, really important. Picture out of the window. What's the view? What's the place like? Those things become really important and making it visible. What we're able to do with that is then start saying, right, okay, so if we go to employees, how do we get them to make it? How do we show the place? What Stack Overflow did is they said, you know what, the most important thing to an engineer is the equipment they work on. Why don't we, given how much money we invest in recruiting people, why don't we, everyone who joins the company gets everything brand new. So before you join, and it's part of their branding, before you join, you choose your workspace. What keyboard do you want? How big do you want your screen? Do you want a stand-up desk, a sit-down desk? What desk do you want? They have a web shop and they spend about $5,000–6,000 on giving you a new, brand new workspace. When anybody leaves, they give the tech away to a charity, which has a double benefit, because that's great PR for them as well, good in the community, but it means everyone who comes in always works on something brand new, and they've chosen their workspace. Now the other thing they do is as soon as they turn up for work the first day and their computer's in the box, which is deliberate, you unpack your own desk and set it up how you want and get yourself comfortable, they start posting the pictures and telling everyone about it on Facebook. There's been a really big, without even trying, by being in touch with actually what are people interested in, what do people want to know, they've been able to change their whole employer branding. And when they want referrals, they don't give anything away. They don't even give anything away for referrals. They just go, we have this job and we want to work with great people, do you know that? And we sometimes underestimate that in any organisation. In any organisation, if we divide the organisation by 100%, we're going to have fanatic. We're going to have fanatic, 20% of fanatics at both ends. We're going to have 20% of people who fanatically hate the company, 20% of people who fanatically love the company, and the normal people will be about the 60%. Our key is getting the 60% to tell the story. Because both sets of fanatics are talking. You know, the people who love it are going out there every day and saying, I love my company, it's so great. They're going out in social media and bars and talking to people and saying how great it is. People who hate it are doing the exact same thing. I hate my boss, I hate this, I hate that. It's the 60% when actually people are saying, I want to get the average story. I want the story of the average Joe. I don't want this guy went off and became a VP in 2 years and this was great. I want the average Joe. So you also have to look at what can we do in the organisation to get the 60% referring, get the 60%, get the average people in the organisation who they're quite happy, they don't love it, they don't hate it, they just understand that. Because their story is also authentic and believable.
The question to those 20 who hate it,
yeah.
they post on social media. Obviously, for management, do they get the question? How can we control this? What do we do about it?
We can't control it.
Exactly, that's what I said.
You can't control. You know anything about it. Actually, it's quite good because you can monitor it and know what's going on. And what you find is, it's how you react to things. So, if you've got a whole load of your people complaining on Facebook about something that goes on in your company, you have a problem in your company. You don't have a problem with Facebook. Most people react and go, "All these people are complaining about stuff, let's sack them because they complain about some stuff." Actually, it's a very good play. It's good that now you have a place there. I'll tell you about, there's a company called Argos, retail outlet. And there's a Facebook page called Argos or Shit. And it's set up by employees. That's why this is a terrible place to work, right? And I spoke with the chairman at a conference and I said, I'm really puzzled because this must be your brand. It's a group. Why do you allow it to be public? You know, they post videos on YouTube and all kinds of stuff. And he said, well, this is the story. When it was started, he said, suddenly I get all my complaints in one place. He said, plus the fact the people who belong clearly hate the brand, so people don't necessarily take it totally. It's like any fanatic. We kind of go in, okay, we're interested. When we have a problem, it's when it's the 60% average Joes who are saying, this isn't well. He said, but because they're all moaning over here, he gave me an example and said, when the group was started, the people who were complaining were mostly Saturday children who worked in the store on Saturday, 15-year-olds and so on. They were doing the complaining. And he said, then he contacted some of them, because they were in one place, and said, could we meet and have talk to them? So we had a coffee, spoke to their parents, said, bring them in. When they brought them in, he said, look, it's no excuse, but I'm the CEO of this company. The distance between me and you as a Saturday member of staff is so big that there's such a big distance between us that I just can't know what goes on. And then he went back to his board and he said, what they're telling me, if that was my son working in my store, I would have a problem with the way we're treated, or an issue. And when I had an issue, I would never shop in our store again. So we need to fix it. So he fixed it. Because he fixed it, he became a hero. And he said, I leave that page open because I actually need to know what they're talking about or what they're complaining about. So I think that's the point. You can't really, you've never been able to control what people say about your company. You've never been able to, in the same way as you've never been able to control the fact that before you had Facebook or any of these channels, I might just go to a bar and tell my friends, who would tell their friends, who would tell their friends. I would still do the same thing. I would go in and say, I really like the job, I really hate my job, my boss is this or my boss is that. So we're not doing anything any different, we're just doing it in a public place. Which is, and then what we have is, the problem you have when you have, if you don't manage negative comments in the right way, is you have what I call rubberneckers. Right? This is what a rubbernecker is, an English expression. But when you have an accident on the motorway, there's usually another accident where all the people slowing down to have a look and see what's happening. So you actually cause a bigger traffic jam on the other side of the road. I'm sure it's exactly the same here, right? People looking over there. So that's kind of what happens on social media. Somebody starts complaining about something. So people who have an investment in that complaint join it, and they might end up. But then most of the people are people rubbernecking. They come in by and looking and saying things and making comments just because they like to stir it up and cause trouble. So you have to think about how you manage it. When we started the BBC Facebook page, the BBC, the first comment, first question that was asked, and the BBC is a very corporate business, as you can imagine, the British Broadcasting Corporation. So when they posted, first question somebody posted was, how many people are in management positions who are not white? That was a question. So suddenly there's a big panic, communications department, what do we do? So I go to this meeting of the comms department saying, how do we deal with this? Should we take the page down? Should we do it? And I said, can I just ask one thing before we have this meeting? Can I just ask one question? I said, what's that? I said, does anyone know the answer?
Yes.
And they went, no, actually we don't. So we're all panicking. Let's go and find out the answer. When we know the answer, we can then kind of decide what we do about it. So we went and found the answer. We found out the answer was 52%. So it was more than half. So the answer was really, the question was asked in a provocative way by somebody, but the answer was actually really positive. But we were having a meeting about how do we deal with this, and said, well, how about we just answer the question? Statistically with a fact. So we went back and said, there's the answer. This is the answer. And sorry we've been slow to come back to you. We just wanted to make sure we had the right. We didn't want to give you the wrong information. And that's what I found is that people have said, actually, if we just talk to people, we accept that some people will like stuff and some people don't. Very often, if we worked, if all of our people are posting on Facebook that the hours in this organisation are very long, and you decide not to apply for us because you don't want to work long hours, that's good. We won't accidentally employ you. And then you can't go, actually, I don't want the hours, right? That's what I meant by if you can create real storytelling. What we should be aiming to do in all of our recruitment campaigns is how do we reduce the number of applicants because we don't need any more. We want the right people applying, people who will fit from a skill and experience point of view, but also people who will go, I actually like this place, this is where I want to work. There's no way they should walk in some surprise. And they should know where they're going to because it's our employees telling them that. Not marketing, not a brochure, nothing else.
That's why you also should be honest about it. This is the problem I had to a certain extent with the Rockstar and the climbing campaign for PwC because of course, yes, you want to track, but this is not what you're going to be doing most of your time. You're going to be an auditor. It's quite different.
Yeah. But then, auditors love being auditors. Right? They get excited about this stuff. The world at last does.
Yeah. Just one thing maybe, this is more for discussion, about the branding part and what you mentioned, China cash-driven. This is what it seems to me, we're probably here in Russia a bit more closer to China now. And this is going back 2006, PwC, we actually were employer of choice #1 for Russia. If you look at now, it's a state company here in Russia.
That's also in China is it a prestige thing?
No, it's a very nice fight actually.
But it's also, I think it's to do with money as well, because you get better paid.
Stability also, because the people believe in state corporations, they will have the stability.
I'll always be employed.
You'll always be employed for a lifetime, like in Japan. Or
Is that again a freedom thing of? Because actually that's quite interesting because at certain age brackets, that's the same things we found in Hungary and Romania. And it was a certain age bracket. It was people over 45, like they really enjoyed working for the state or what they considered to be a state.
in Russia, that's a problem because I've seen polls that say that most of people under 25 see Gazprom as a perfect employer.
Gazprom is a private company.
It's a state corporation.
But is it also to do with the salary?
Well, yeah,
That's
it's
what
one of the components.
One of the components. Stability.
They pay more money.
Salary.
And when you tell people that I work in Gazprom, this is, they think that might be cool.
It's a big
as well.
Yeah,
For
it's a
some
big
reason,
thing in Hong Kong and China. It's a big thing that you can tell people who you work for. So for instance, in Hong Kong, it's Hong Kong China Bank, so if you, which isn't a state bank, but it kind of is. Yeah, that's also why a lot of the, when Universal do a survey at the top, graduate employer brands, pretty good. They have a book called The Battle for Brain Power, which documents this. And very often it's the airlines. And it's not necessarily because the airlines are the best employer, it's because people identify two things in here. Number one, they see it as international, and it normally has the country name, so that's kind of got a bit of nationalistic about it. Equally, travel, thinking that the opportunity for global is quite attractive, which is why it's quite interesting that people say, no, actually, the gas company is where I want to work. You're going to meet the people you need.
Yeah. And this is important for Russia to be able to have a network that you can leverage in the future.
Yeah.
So this is a very local incentive.
You can sacrifice money at
Yeah.
the beginning of your career working for residence office, but then you have a chance to start your own business or
So you'd work in the gas department, you'd meet with people who work in gas, and then in some way you become a gas consultant for them.
Absolutely.
And that's the career path.
And going to the recruitment part of the side of it, many times it's recruiting families and friends. So if I'm a head of a department, I recruit my son, my
this kind of referrals really work.
That's the referral in Russian.
You know, that's exactly right. So that's the referral. Who do you know? Yeah, here's my family.
But it's not the best way to.
No,
This is now with the selection. This now raises the issues of efficiency.
It's a huge problem for a hired manager who cannot find this. I mean, someone comes to the company and he faces the problem that he or she faces the problem that his or her manager tries to persist in hiring someone from his family. And a new hired manager cannot resist because he just
that's what
has
happens.
no choice.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what causes that kind of? So that's a normal kind of nepotism, family.
That's the word.
Yeah, that's the way things are done here. Is that if you're a manager, kind of family. Okay.
And that is why people may be a little bit scared of referral programs in Russia. This might be the reason. Because they would think that it would encourage nepotism and all.
Encourage you to refer
Encourage
your
you
family.
to refer your friends and family.
Yeah,
This is
might
an
be like
issue that
Well,
we
we-
will have to deal with
Yeah.
when
I
going out.
think I know how to sell that.
Okay.
You just give me it's something we should concentrate on here. We probably should be concentrating on the skill match bit.
Well,
To say we tell you who to refer based on their background or based on their family.
yeah, and you really have to focus on that when you are marketing referral policy, well, when you're going out and selling referral programs or
I'll remember that.
consultants.
That's useful. So what else, from an employer point of view, how else do people actually, or is it not?
Well, from the employer point of view, I mean, okay, let's say you said GE, Sumitomo Mitsui, Japanese. There is a clear cut. There is the non-Russian corporations, global brands, and then there is the Russian.
Would the average employee prefer government departments aside, because I can see in your story that you can see that if you go and work for the government for 5 years, you're going to get some kind of, or local authority, you're going to get some kind of advantage at some stage through your network. Does the global piece of corporations, like if you're a Coca-Cola or Sumitomo, does that hold a high appeal or is that less attractive?
This is what we're saying is getting less and less. It's become less. And we're basically in a sort of cohabitation now. We, for example, if you look at the Western banks, our candidate pool is amongst them. And what we see is the candidates, they rotate. GE Bank's part of that, of course.
So they go and work for GE and then they do, what, 2 years and then they go to Sumitomo for 2 years?
Take the ING, then the Credit Agricole, and so on and so on. It also means for us that if someone is to a certain age, has never actually worked in a Western corporate environment, possible to hire. And it's unfortunate. This is no. They
You
will
can't
not
attract them,
They
they're
will.
unsuitable.
No. Well, now yes as well, because obviously we pay less than the state bank. And
You pay that, so the salary levels are less.
yes, there are
Western
lower
organisations.
They're now lower. Right. Yes. And we find it for them nearly impossible to recruit.
Well, it's absolutely true. We have seen examples of that happening. I mean, Russian style managers being hired by Western corporations, but it's a rare.
It's rare.
Well,
There are always exceptions. Of course, there are exceptions. And I'm saying this clear cut. Even if we now have, of course, Russian organizations who are becoming global.
Yeah.
So
There are quite a few.
Quite a few. You know, and of course, if I look at BTB Capital, of course, it's not Russian, so post-Soviet organization.
Or
of course,
versus
not.
just that.
So do people join Sumitomo or GE because they've got the global corporation or because they are
If they join,
a
but they,
different class of employee? What's the...
I think a lot of young people join because they want to have international experience, there is a lot of career opportunities.
Yeah.
So there's specific people I think that join. They're targeted.
Training side.
Training sites, career, global, learning
And the global bit, is that because they want to be, they're thinking they're going to be able to work out of country at some point and go to New York or wherever.
That's what they can acquire best practices and then apply them.
In a Russian company.
Yeah.
So go and join, do it almost like a university.
Yeah, absolutely.
5 years. Accept some lower money to get the best way of doing things.
As
And then
in
send it
some
back.
countries called international companies like corporate schools, because for most people these are actually universities where we gain and learn all the stuff that they may need in their future life.
And in your branding, this is quite interesting, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because I have a story quite similar to this, in a different way. Do you brand yourself as being a university come and learn with us? Because it's going to benefit your career, or do you brand yourself as with this great company on stage ourselves?
Well, for us, again, you have to look at the organization. Outside of Japan, Sumitomo is a corporate bank, so therefore we don't.
And it's also Japanese, so they're very proud of.
But therefore we don't do employee branding at all. Zero. We are not on the market. We are not visible because our business is beyond visibility.
They're never visible.
No, we're not. We're visible to our clients.
Yeah, you're visible to a brand purely because they come and invest in us rather than say. Yeah.
So the people we look for are always experienced hires. We don't do graduate hires.
Okay.
And what about GE?
No, I think they want to hire for the long term. So we are at universities recruiting and training programs and diesel finance, HR training.
But being a corporate school is not part of your image, right? I mean, you don't
Well, we
go
have-
out and say that we are.
We do, but not only for people, for MPs, but also for business people.
Yeah.
Bill, which is the University of Chile, where actually also Russian big CEOs went to study. So yes, there is this university kind of learning.
At the BBC, we had this thing at the BBC where they came to me and they said, right, everybody's joining us in future media. The people who join, generally people who stay here for 2 years. Because we work on the best technology, we have an excellent name, so if we're on the CV, and you've been there 2 years, people know that you're okay, you're good at what you do, you can get another job. We pay about half as much as everybody else. The salary's about half. And I actually said to them, why don't we just tell people that? And they went, oh, that looks terrible. I said, no, why don't we say, come here, you're going to do great work, you're going to work with great colleagues, people are going to teach you great stuff, and then when you want to go in 2 years' time,
Well, you want to hire people.
that's fine. You know, when you want to go, but why do you want to hire people with lots of? Because your mind tells you you have to.
Well, because in managerial position, it's important to have a person working there at least for 5 years, 4 years.
Not for me. I want to turn over the majority of my staff every 2 years.
That's very controversial.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I shocked quite a lot of people. 2 reasons. One, that's normally the turnover anyway, so let's accept it. So you do one of 2 things. You either, people should always change their job about every 2 years. So they should either change their job by changing the organisation or change company. One of the 2. So we accept that happens. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the way in which business moves now. Every 2 years, a corporation or company needs to reinvent itself. It needs different people to the people it has.
And GE do it too every
Yeah.
3 years.
Some of the people will evolve and say, we're great here, we really like it. Some of the people will be the wrong people. What the problem is when you measure quality of hire by retention, usually the people you've had for 5, 6, 7 years are the people you can't get rid of rather than the people who are great. You're kind of going to, let's try and find ways to shift these people on. Because they're not doing anything wrong where we can fire them, but we also know they're not being creative. This is a generalisation. There are exceptions to that rule. You know, some people who stay in companies 7, 8, 9, 10 years. do a great job. But the other point is jobs in the way that we know them are disappearing. Job is disappearing to be replaced by work. What I mean by that is, and it may not have come too far now, 55% of the world's working population do not have a traditional job, as in a contract of employment forever. They all have some form of, this is a 1-year contract, 2-year contract, 3-year contract. They all have something which is temporary. Right?
I think the Russian statistics is
Well,
now it will change.
yeah, because
It is like that now because still the employment legislation.
Yeah,
Just
it's
like
a question of the
That's-
question.
yeah, that's
Because if you aren't employed for based on a real solid contract, you have less rights.
yeah.
Even you can't, even not only the employee, the employer as well.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why you can't do it.
Whereas the opposite is, somewhere like France, it's nearly impossible to sack anyone. Whatever. It's nearly impossible to sack anyone. Therefore, they put everyone on 1-year contract. Because then the worst you're going to have to do is pay them to the end of the year. It's part of the global understanding, and that's what you do. I can't sack you, therefore, I just won't renew your contract at the end of the year. I will accept you go. It's kind of like a sports.
So I just wanted to say that in Russia we call people that change, job every 2 years, job hoppers.
Job hoppers,
They
yeah.
are treated much worse than people that stay for at least 7 years on in every company.
Yeah, employers see the risks
Yeah.
hiring these people.
But is that changing?
No. Well, I haven't
Yeah.
seen it change. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not an employer.
Yeah.
But
You'll have it's changing. The interesting, the data that I monitor for that, and you'll have an equivalent, but there's the Office of Labour Statistics, which tells you, how people are working, what contracts are doing. It's changing into globally, work is changing. There's two things that are changing significantly. One is, job is going from being something that you had forever, and you work for the corporation, to something that to be project-based. We put together a project team, they deliver, and then they finish and they dissolve, so we do that. Or job is disappearing to work. So the things that are going are hours contracts. So where somebody might have worked for 40 hours, you get employed for 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week or however long your contract says. Now you get employed to do work to deliver this outcome. You might do it in 50 hours, you might do it in 10, doesn't matter, you're going to get paid for the work. Increasingly also, people are freelancing and applying for work using places like Elance, 3Desk, where actually you pitch, I'll go and do that work and you will pay me this amount of money for that work, not I'll work for you 30 hours a week and you give me this cash. That's kind of changing the way that work is.
I think it's changing here also because, again, from the employer point of view, we have such a shortage of, as I said before, managerial and skilled workers. If someone has joined the company, we've invested in them in their training, it is incredibly painful to lose them. That's why, of course, from the employer point of view, you are trying to be doing more to keep them. And overall, because the market is very intransparent, people now tend to stay at home. It used to be 4 or 5 years ago, it really changed the
Does that mean you end up keeping rubbish people becoming uncompetitive? Sometimes it changes that.
Most importantly, you focus more on the selection part of course of recruitment. You think more, this is also a tendency you see in Russia that it was before easier to hire,
to keep chatting.
whereas now you tend to think twice before you hire.
Okay, well that's been a very interesting conversation. Shall we go and have coffee? That's good, thank you. That's really useful for me. I love this. What's happening?